Hey, I have another series to show you in the studio that is working right now. And again, my name's Neil Johnston, and this is Paintstew. It's just some little videos from my studio. And here's another series I'm working on. This is another layered resin series, although this one is exploring some other sort of ideas and aesthetics. And so I want to show you right now a little bit of what I'm working on. So these are about mid-process, and you can see that they are glossy. They have a nice smooth surface, but these started a little bit differently than some of the other ones. This one here, I utilized some triangular shapes in the beginning to work out the composition. You can see that there's some poured areas in the layers, that there's some drawn. I like using paint pens so you can see that there's some subtle drawing areas. And these the palette of these kind of came out as these kind of yellows and warm golds. There's a little bit of silver leaf in here. You can see that glistening in there. So these were these kind of amoeba shape paintings for a while. These bubbles were primary elements that I was exploring with in some sketches. They're I showed an earlier video of some graphic designs I was kind of working on, really some cartoonish looking things. But you can see this one here again is on the cradled 16-inch by 16-inch birch panels. I don't know if you can see it from the side. Well, you can't, I know that. But there's probably about 7 layers of resin here. Again, when I'm done with this, I will sand this off. I'll put it on sort of a belt sander, on a table-mounted belt sander, and kind of really grind them nice and flat. But anyway, you can see the latest layer is this poured blue acrylic, which has quite a nice texture. And I had used some tape and taped off some kind of converging lines, some diagonal lines. I'm going to clean this up a little bit before I pour resin on it, but that's kind of what I would do. I'd paint on top of something, then layer another layer of resin on. And what the layer of resin does, it actually you can see that there's a crease in this paint here pretty obviously, but when I layer the resin over the top, then that is a little bit less apparent. You'll see it in there, but not as much. I also started experimenting with the idea that these could be landscapes, like sweeps of space without a lot of things in between, but this broad expanse. There are 3 of these, and they all kind of go like this, you can see, and they may be a long series. I'm trying to decide what the feeling or intensity is in each one so that I can kind of resolve them so that each of them is a little bit different than the others. You can see here's another one. So here's a second one. And you can see I'm kind of working with similar elements and ways of applying paint. So of course you can see through all of these, this particular layer is this poured blue. And a lot of times I'll have these sitting on the easels for a few days until I sort of get sparked with my imagination can kind of fill in what is going to happen next. And for these, it was this blue, these blue colors. And each of these is a little bit different blue. This is a darker, this is a medium blue, this is a lighter blue. And there was something about adding the blue to these that I think was a reaction to some of this phthalo green blue shade that's happening in a couple of these areas. This sort of green, those cool warm colors. Cool warm, that doesn't make sense, does it? But greens for me, there can be cool greens and warm greens, of course, and that those sparked this idea that maybe blue is going to come into the works. And I think right now the compositions, they kind of work vertically or horizontally. And this is something else that I will be resolving in the next few weeks. Just which direction do they need to be, horizontal or vertical? Because there's something the vertical lines in these relate to the vertical divisions in the paintings that had the trees on them as well. There's still something about those vertical gaps, like looking in between these spaces, that's still interesting. But that said, when I turn them this way, they really read, they're starting to read as these landscapes, and these things are things coming up over the horizon. They're always little investigations, not little necessarily, but they're investigations. I'm not quite sure until I've lived with them for a while, how they are evolving. I really see them kind of as evolving things. So here's another one, and eventually they're going to resolve. Now, again, what's nice about some of these, and because they're square, I often, like this is interesting too, like turn them around and paint them from different directions and examine them, and I wonder what this might sort of be up to here. This is interesting with this sort of blue network underneath. This is like what do they call that? Mycelial network? The network of mushrooms under the ground or something. There's something in that shape. So we'll see, but they're still mid-process. I imagine I have a couple, maybe 3 weeks left on them before I finally resolve them. And I hope that you stick around for the ride. We'll see how they turn out. So thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you in the next video.